missing. Let's bring in NBC's Priscilla Thompson. She is in Kerrville. That is where we just got this update from authorities. Priscilla, I think, again, the most staggering thing here is just those numbers reflect how difficult this recovery process really is, finding those who are missing.
Yeah, Savannah, that is the thing that stuck out to me as well. I believe the governor briefed on Tuesday night and had similar numbers in the amount of missing, around that 161, 170 across all of these counties here in the Hill Country. And it appears from what we heard today that the numbers here in Kerr County are still at 161 missing. And that is after an additional 24 hours of searching. That means in the last 24 hours, it does not appear that they have found any more remains or identified any other of these missing folks. And obviously, as the days continue to pass and the search continues growing more desperate, it's unclear if they are going to be able to find all of these people. And when you look at the devastation, you begin to understand there's all of this very heavy debris that they are working meticulously to go through with heavy machinery, searching for any signs of a person that they might be able to identify to bring these families some closure. And I also noticed that they opened this press conference, which I should note was probably the shortest one that we've seen so far, under 10 minutes, talking about that question of accountability, which is one of the questions that is growing more louder as this search continues, whether more could have or should have been done to prevent this massive loss of life, the massive amount of people who are missing. And you heard officials there saying the governor announced yesterday that this is going to be talked about in the special session. He has suggested that there will be hearings about the response and that is when they are going to begin to address those questions. But nonetheless, there were reporters in the room, including our own Morgan Chesky, pressing officials there about some of those questions. You heard Morgan ask them about the radio systems and whether the county and the city were communicating. And again, officials saying they had no information on that question for him. We also heard the question of, look, this area could get more rain and potentially more flooding in the coming weeks. What is going to be different if this happens again soon? And what we heard them say there is just that they're going to be, quote, very weather alert. It is unclear what exactly that means. So still a lot of questions on the accountability front, even as we are learning that the number of missing does not appear to be going down right now. And the death toll, as you noted, increased by 1. Savannah?
Yeah, Priscilla, a great question there, of course, from our colleague. But even that special session that you point out, by my count, I think is still something like 11 days away where they're supposed to broach this topic. And as you mentioned, weather between now and then could continue to be a concern. I also want to ask you a little bit more, and you touched on this, but just about the response that we're seeing on the ground, because I'm sure people at home are just thinking, oh, my goodness, essentially no one has been found in 24 hours. But we did hear there are 21 responders on the ground. Those are from state, local, federal agencies. We know of teams coming from other states, bringing just tons of equipment along with them. There are volunteer organizations bringing cadaver dogs, bringing horses that can traverse the river, and yet still so many missing. Tell us about what you've seen on the ground in terms of these people who are carrying out the recovery effort.
Yeah, Savannah, just a few minutes ago, as this presser was ongoing, there were a group of men who walked by with chainsaws here where we are. So folks are continuing to try to cut up some of these big debris. And we know that, as you noted, there are federal, there are state resources, there are all of these resources on the ground. You have a number of states across the country, even some teams from Mexico that have come over to try to assist with this search effort. We've seen the helicopters overhead, the scuba divers in the water, divers in the water also searching, people wading into the water with flashlights trying to search. But that also gives you a sense of just how difficult this is. You're dealing with these muddy riverbanks. You've got a lot of big debris, as officials were saying. You've got pieces of homes. You've got vehicles sometimes that have all been pulled into this water. I believe the latest we heard from officials was that they had searched around 1,100 miles of this river and this area. And as you noted, still, like, we're not seeing the numbers of missing going down. And so that gives you a sense of just how difficult this task is going to be, as I imagine some minds and questions are turning to whether all of these people are ever going to be found and identified, and what closure is going to look like for these families after this just incredibly devastating tragedy for so many.
One of the other things we specifically heard about was the fact that there are these still 5 campers and 1 counselor missing from Camp Mystic, which has just turned out to the stories we're hearing right about this place and how special it is to people who are campers there. I had an older woman on my show this morning who is now sheltering in place with people that she went to Camp Mystic with generations ago. Give us the latest on this camp. I know it's in so many people's thoughts on their hearts right now, just thinking about Camp Mystic and the families that have been impacted there. What do we know at this point?
Yeah, we had teams in that area yesterday, and they described seeing that a lot of the trunks and the things in the cabins were just pulled out as they were continuing to sort of go through some of the aftermath there. And it was just a devastating sight, because you think about all those kids, all of those counselors who were there having a good time at camp when these floodwaters rushed in. And as they said in that presser, some 36 children who died in all of this, still 5 campers who are missing, 1 counselor, and that number has remained there since about Monday, I believe, was when Camp Mystic had put out that information, and that number has not changed. And so it is certainly devastating, but we're also seeing the community coming together overnight. There were 2 vigils that were held, and it was just community just remembering and grieving together as one. There are a lot of resources on the ground here to help those who are rebuilding, many of them survivors who are just grateful that they are still alive, especially as they are seeing what some of these parents and just people who have had loved ones who have died, what they are going through. But we have seen in all of this that Camp Mystic community is strong. It goes back decades, and I have no doubt we'll continue to see them supporting each other as they work to make sense of this all and to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Priscilla, yesterday in the briefing, we heard from the mayor there of Kerrville, Mayor Joe Herring. He mentioned one specific resource. He said he thought the best place for those of us at home, which I know so many of our viewers are wondering how they can help, was a website, communityfoundation.net. He said so many things that were those donations were going straight to those who needed it. What are you seeing on the ground as the greatest needs from people, for people at home who want to help?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the survivors here, there are some of them who have lost everything, who their homes literally just got pulled into this river. And so it is thinking about housing, short-term housing, long-term housing. Where are they going to stay? Things like food and clothes. And I will tell you, we've also seen a lot of volunteers here, the tents that are set up offering meals, the people who are coming by saying, do you need water? What do you need? Volunteers also just helping folks to kind of clear some of that debris and to make sense of what is left and where they begin to pick up the pieces. There's also a FEMA site that is now opened to help provide resources, even though we know that the state is going to be taking the lead on this recovery. For folks who aren't covered by insurance or may not have insurance, they can go to that FEMA site and get additional information. But certainly donating to places like that community, the Hill Country community group that you mentioned that are accepting donations. And in fact, officials yesterday said they were getting so many donations that they were going to have to reconfigure that site a bit so that it could manage all of those donations. You also have United Way and a number of organizations that I know we have on our website where for folks who want to support. And certainly people here do appreciate that support, Savannah. We have heard that from so many people we've spoken to here.
Priscilla Thompson, thank you so much for your reporting on the ground from Kerrville. It's been fantastic. And we will continue to follow this story throughout the day. Again, those updated totals, 96 dead in Kerr County alone. Stay with us for more on Morning News Now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.